Without relinquishing her hold on the chair, the waitress, he must find out her name, asked, "Okay?" For emphasis, she jiggled the back of the chair, clattering its metal legs on the asphalt. The fellow nodded without enthusiasm, swiveling his head toward the group of tourists. One of them waved and shouted, "Vielen Dank!" The Habsburg Empire had self-destructed some 90 years ago, but German speakers still viewed Budapest as an anachronistic piece of Austrian territory. At the table behind Attila's, 3 elderly Hungarian women were debating the relative merits of the chestnut puree, sweet, traditional, brandy-basted, and the Kugelloaf, historically more interesting but less tasty. In the center of the square, under the seated bronze statue of Mihai Vörösmarty, Hungary's beloved poet, 3 young men in faded blue jeans were making a small drug deal. Vörösmarty was looking down as if observing the activities of the young men. The vendor pulled a plastic bag from his pocket and offered a taste. Hardly worth the effort. It was no more than 10 ounces. "Be faithful to your land forever, O Hungarian." The great poet's words ran around the pedestal where a bronze phalanx of fellow Hungarians formed Vörösmarty's adoring public. The buyer finger-tasted the coke and nodded to his companion, who would be carrying the cash. Street value of maybe a couple of $1,000. Small-time dealer. Attila assumed he worked the hotels on the Pest side and some of the classy apartments along the tram line. A couple of years ago, Attila would have been bearing down on them, but back then they'd have already spotted him for a cop and moved the trade somewhere else. What was it about him that had changed so much in only 2 years? Attila had been hunched over his table, a broad-shouldered, graying man, balding on top, overweight, ham-fisted, thick-necked, his shirt collar and jacket both too tight. He straightened his back when the young dealer glanced at him, mildly suspicious, but then the dealer palmed the money and handed over the merchandise without a second look at Attila. The man with the Wall Street Journal examined his bill, counted some forints into the tray, and stood up to leave. His pants, caught in the wedge of his ass, stuck to his thighs. He must have gained weight since he bought them, Attila thought with some satisfaction. Anyway, it was too warm for leather pants. His attention was caught by a young woman, her red hair flying, her light blue summer dress swinging, and her slender white heels flying over the paving stones as she ran toward the gerbeau. She lifted her long legs over the silk rope barrier, straddling it for a second, her cotton skirt billowing around her, offering a glimpse of her white cotton panties. Then she was wrapping her arms around the sweaty young man with the calfskin caught between his buttocks. Yonshi, she called him, her voice soft as the inside of her thighs. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded. Obviously, although the days of swooning over Westerners were long gone, he still thought it stylish to sound foreign. The woman by the window glanced at the gilt-framed mirror above her companion's head. She adjusted her silk scarf, flicked her hair over her shoulder, then made that little moo that some women make when they are checking their makeup. She stood up with her weight on her palms flat against the table. Attila figured she was probably still exhausted from her flight and the long drive from Vienna, but she recovered quickly and walked out fast, her dress clinging to her legs, a leather handbag dangling from her arm. She was pretty, although a little older than pretty warranted, and her bare arms and long legs showed the kind of muscle earned by regular workouts. Her erstwhile companion stayed at the table, sipping coffee and digging into the large serving of chestnut puree that had sat there ignored for the past 20 minutes. He was no longer only vaguely familiar. The narrow forehead under the froth of hair. He ran a posh art shop on Váci Street. Attila had paid him a visit about 10 years ago. The man had been caught with some stolen primitive art, Indian. He couldn't remember what the outcome was, except that the man had somehow got away with it. Attila laid his change on the tray and followed her across the square, past Vörösmarty's statue, the McCafe, the Hard Rock Cafe, the exorbitantly expensive clothing stores, down to the Danube, where his quarry was marching past.